The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled over Hudson like a curse returning home. The wind howled through the ranch fences, and rain lashed against the horses' stalls. But through the chaos, one sound cut through everything: the thundering hooves of a single rider. Nathan, his coat soaked, his breath uneven, his eyes locked forward. In his hand, he clutched a small glass vial glowing faintly under the lightning. Every second mattered. Every breath felt like his last. He wasn't just racing the storm, he was racing against time, and against the poison that was already spreading, because tonight, someone had poisoned Heartland. And Nathan was the only one who knew who did it. The day had started like any other. The sky was soft, the horses restless after the long night, and Amy was already in the barn brushing Spartan. Nathan kept his head down as always, quiet but careful, moving from stall to stall. To everyone at Heartland, he was just a new stable hand, polite, hardworking, and a little too shy to look people in the eye. But that was only half the truth. Beneath that calm face, Nathan was hiding something he prayed no one would ever uncover. It began a week ago when he noticed something strange. One of the feed bags had been moved, replaced actually. It looked the same, but the seal was wrong. That night, he stayed late after everyone left. The barn was silent except for the slow breathing of the horses. When he cut open the bag, a sharp smell hit him, metallic, bitter, poison, and not just any kind. It was strong enough to stop a horse's heart within minutes. 81st, he wanted to tell Jack, but fear stopped him. Because the next morning, Nathan found a note pinned to his locker. Silence, or they suffer. No name, no signature. Just those words written in ink that smelled faintly of smoke. From that day on, Nathan started noticing small things: the way the new investor, Mr. Collins, would appear out of nowhere during feed rounds. How he'd smile too easily, ask too many questions, and always glance toward Amy's horse. Nathan tried to convince himself he was imagining it. But when he found a second vial hidden behind the hay bales, his hands started shaking. This wasn't a mistake. Someone was trying to destroy Heartland from the inside. Each night, Nathan stayed awake listening to the wind. He couldn't eat. He couldn't think. All he could see were the faces of the people who trusted him: Amy, Lou, Jack, and the thought of losing them crushed him. But he knew something worse. The poison wasn't meant for the horses alone. There was a deeper reason. A secret buried long before he arrived. Something connected to his past and to a name he hadn't spoken in years. Hudson had always been a place of healing, a place where broken souls found peace. But that peace was fragile now. The poison in the barn was only the beginning, a reflection of the poison that had already crept into their hearts. The poison didn't spread through the stables first, it spread through the people. One whisper at a time, one doubt after another. By the end of the week, the warmth that once filled Heartland began to fade. Conversations turned shorter, glances turned colder, and every silence carried suspicion. Nathan felt it like a weight pressing on his chest. He could see it in Amy's eyes, that quiet confusion that comes when trust begins to fracture. She didn't know what was wrong, but she could sense that something dark was crawling through the ranch she loved. Nathan tried to act normal, but guilt followed him everywhere. Every time Spartan neighed, every time Lou asked about the feed, every time Jack gave him that kind, trusting look, Nathan's heart twisted tighter. He wanted to speak, to confess, but the threat from that note haunted his every step. Whoever had left it knew more than just his secret. They knew his past. The one thing he'd buried so deep he hoped even Hudson's winds couldn't uncover it. Late one evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Nathan found himself standing in front of the paddock. The sky was bruised purple and gold. Spartan stood still, calm but alert, his dark eyes fixed on Nathan. There was something about that horse, as if he could sense the chaos burning inside him. Nathan reached out a hand, trembling slightly, and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you." The promise hung in the air like a fragile thread. He didn't notice Amy standing a few steps behind him, watching in silence. That night, the nightmares began again. Nathan saw flashes of his sister, her laughter echoing through the barn, her hands brushing the horses' manes. Then her face fading, her breath gone. The same bitter smell of metal and poison, the same feeling of helplessness. He woke up, drenched in sweat, realizing the truth he had avoided for too long. This wasn't a new tragedy. It was a repeat of the past. The same poison, the same plan. Only this time, it was happening at Heartland. The next morning, Lou found something odd, a cracked bottle near the stables, half buried in the dirt. The smell was sharp and wrong. She called Jack over, but before they could inspect it, Nathan appeared, pretending surprise, pretending he didn't already know. Jack frowned, puzzled but trusting. He told Nathan to clean up and keep quiet until Amy came back. As they walked away, Nathan's hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the pieces of glass. The liquid inside shimmered faintly the same hue as the vial he'd hidden in his jacket. For the first time, Nathan realized the truth. The poison wasn't meant for the horses anymore. It was meant for someone else. Someone the saboteur wanted gone. And if Nathan didn't act soon, that person would be Amy. The guilt turned into panic, the fear into fire. Hudson was no longer just a ranch, it was a battleground of hearts poisoned by secrets, lies, and old wounds that refused to die. Nathan had spent his whole life running from his past, but now the past had found him again, wearing a new face and holding a new bottle. He knew what he had to do. He had to run, but this time, not away from Heartland, toward it. Toward the truth. No matter how much it burned. The night cracked open with thunder. Rain poured like shattered glass, slicing through the dark fields of Hudson. The storm had no mercy, and neither did time. Nathan's hands were trembling as he saddled. The horse's breath fast, his heart pounding like hooves against stone. The letter he'd found in his locker that evening still burned in his mind. She drinks at dawn. The vial is ready, Amy. The realization hit him like lightning. The poison wasn't meant for Spartan this time, it was meant for her. Nathan tore through the storm, mud splashing up his legs, his eyes fixed on the faint lights of Heartland in the distance. The vial was tucked inside his coat, clinking softly with every gallop. It felt like it weighed more than his own soul. Every beat of the horse beneath him was a plea, a prayer, a promise he couldn't afford to break. Wind howled through the open fields, carrying whispers of his past, his sister's laughter, her scream. The night she died the same way Amy almost would tonight. It wasn't an accident back then either. It was the same poison, the same cruelty, the same signature on every bottle of brand that tied his family's tragedy to this ranch. Nathan's vision blurred with rain and memory. He could barely breathe, but he couldn't stop. The trail twisted, the thunder roared, and lightning flashed the outline of two riders behind him, dark silhouettes chasing him down. Collins's men. The storm wasn't the only danger out there. A gunshot cracked through the sky. The horse reared, terrified, but Nathan held on. He pressed lower, urging it faster. The wind tore at his coat as another shot whizzed past his shoulder. Pain seared his side, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Every drop of blood was worth it if he could save Amy. He could already see the barn lights now flickering through sheets of rain. The familiar roofline of Heartland stood ahead like salvation. But his strength was fading. His hands slipped on the reins, his breath came ragged, and his vision dimmed at the edges. Just a little further, he whispered, "Please." Behind him, the riders were closing in. Ahead, the barn doors creaked in the wind. The storm swallowed every sound except his racing heartbeat. Then, with one final burst of will, Nathan drove the horse forward, crashing through the gates and collapsing onto the muddy ground. Amy ran from the barn, shouting his name though he could barely hear her anymore. The vial rolled from his hand, glowing faintly in the light. He tried to speak, but the words came out as a whisper. "Don't let them use it." The rain washed over his face, the storm roaring around them. His fingers tightened for a moment, and then loosened. Amy lifted the vial, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes as the truth began to unfold in silence. The storm passed with the first light of morning. Hudson was quiet again, too quiet. The rain had washed the dirt from the fields, but it couldn't wash away the fear that clung to the air. The ground was still soft with mud where Nathan had fallen, his footprints leading nowhere. The horse stood nearby, trembling, its breath heavy and warm against the cold dawn. Amy knelt beside the spot where he'd dropped the vial, her hands shaking as she picked it up. The glass shimmered faintly, like it still held a heartbeat inside. Jack found her there, silent and soaked, staring at the thing that almost destroyed them all. He didn't ask questions he didn't need to. There was something in her eyes that said the answers hurt too much to speak. Together, they carried Nathan into the barn, laying him beside Spartan's stall. The old wood creaked under the weight of everything that had just happened: loss, truth, and the quiet kind of grief that settles deep into the walls. Later that day, when the clouds began to clear, Amy noticed a folded piece of paper tucked into Nathan's jacket pocket. The edges were wet, the ink smudged, but his handwriting was unmistakable. She hesitated, then opened it. "Amy," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I wasn't fast enough. I never meant to bring my past into yours. Years ago, someone poisoned everything I loved. My sister. She trusted the wrong man. I ran from that pain, but it found me again here, at Heartland. I thought I could stop it this time. I thought I could save someone. I just didn't know it would be you." Amy's eyes blurred as she read the final lines. "Please forgive me for what I couldn't say. The poison wasn't just in the bottle, it was in the lies, in the fear, in the silence I carried. Tell Jack. Tell everyone the truth. I wasn't the enemy. I was just a messenger." When she looked up, the barn seemed different, lighter. Somehow, Spartan nudged her shoulder softly, as if sensing her sorrow. She pressed the letter against her heart and whispered, "You did save someone, Nathan." The wind outside picked up, carrying the scent of rain and new beginnings through the open doors. That evening, Lou found Amy still sitting by Spartan, the vial gone from her hands. When Lou asked where it was, Amy only said, "Buried with him." Hudson breathed again, slow and steady, but nothing felt quite the same. The people went back to work, the horses ran free, and yet there was something in the air, a reminder that peace is fragile, and secrets never stay buried for long. Days turned into weeks, but the echoes of that storm never truly left. Heartland healed as it always did, quietly and with grace. The sun returned to the fields, horses ran free again, and the laughter that once filled the air slowly found its way back between the fences. But something had changed. The ranch felt older now, wiser, as if it had seen too much to ever be the same. Amy often walked alone at dawn, her boots brushing against the wet grass, her mind caught somewhere between memory and forgiveness. She still carried Nathan's letter in her jacket, folded and worn from being read too many times. Some mornings, she swore she could still hear his voice in the wind, calm, steady, the way he used to whisper to the horses. Jack noticed it too. The quiet way Amy would pause by the paddock before starting her day, or how Spartan's ears would perk up at the sound of distant hooves that weren't there. Hudson had always held its ghosts close, and now Nathan was one of them, not a haunting presence, but a guardian spirit, watching from the corners of every sunrise. One evening, while cleaning the barn, Amy found something strange wedged between the wooden planks near the stall. It was another vial, but empty. No poison, no danger, just a single white feather sealed inside. She stared at it for a long time, a shiver running through her. Lou said it must have been left there long ago, but Amy knew better. This wasn't a warning, it was a sign. That night, as the stars stretched across the Hudson sky, Amy rode Spartan to the far hill, the same one where Nathan had first appeared months ago. She placed the empty vial on the ground, beside the small wooden cross Jack had built for him. Then she whispered, "You can rest now." The wind rose softly, swirling through the grass, carrying the faint scent of rain and wildflowers. And for a moment, Amy felt warmth, not from the sun, but from something deeper, something that felt like forgiveness. The kind of peace that only comes when a wound finally closes. Down in the valley, the lights of Heartland glowed softly against the dark. Life moved on. New faces arrived. New stories began. But somewhere in the distance, under the wide Hudson sky, a rider's silhouette flickered just for a second before fading into the light of dawn. The world didn't stop after Nathan's death, it simply learned to breathe differently. Heartland moved forward, as all living things must, but the ground still held his story in its roots. The barn doors no longer creaked with fear, they sighed with memory. The fields, once tainted by poison, grew greener than before, as if the land itself had chosen to forgive. Amy began to dream again. In her sleep, she saw the old oak by the paddock glowing under moonlight, and beneath it, the faint outline of a man standing with his horse. He never spoke, never moved, just stood quietly, like he was waiting. Each time she woke, her heart ached less, and her hands trembled less when she brushed Spartan's mane. Nathan's ghost wasn't haunting her. It was guiding her. One afternoon, while sorting old tools in the shed, Amy found a box marked with faded letters ND. Inside were sketches of horses, notes about herbs, and a small, rusted locket. When she opened it, there was a photograph inside Nathan and his sister, smiling in front of a ranch that looked eerily familiar. On the back, written in uneven ink, "Redemption lives where love survives." That night, Amy couldn't sleep. She tipped the locket to Jack, and for a long time, they just sat in silence. Finally, Jack said quietly, "Maybe Nathan didn't come here by accident. Maybe Heartland was where he was meant to end and begin again." From that day forward, strange little blessings began to happen. Sick horses healed faster. Lost foes found their way back. Storms that once tore through Hudson now broke apart before reaching it. And sometimes in the early morning mist, Amy would hear the faint sound of hooves, a steady rhythm in the distance, fading with the sunrise. Lou once joked that maybe Nathan was still keeping watch. But Amy didn't laugh. She only smiled, softly, her eyes glistening with quiet knowing. Because deep down, she felt it too, that some stories don't end when life does. They just change shape, becoming part of the land, the wind, the heartbeat of everything left behind. In the final shot, the camera rises over Heartland at dawn. The sun spills gold over the stables. Horses run free. The ranch hums with life again. And just before the screen fades to black, a voice whispers, calm, peaceful, familiar. The first light of spring spilled over Hudson like forgiveness. It had been months since the storm, months since Nathan's desperate race, and the night the truth changed everything. Heartland had healed, not by forgetting, but by remembering gently. The barn smelled of fresh hay again, the fences shone with new paint, and laughter drifted through the morning air like music carried on the wind. Amy stood by the paddock, watching Spartan graze beneath the rising sun. The sky above him blazed with gold, and for a moment, she swore she could see movement on the far hill, a single rider bathed in light, gone before she could blink. She smiled faintly, knowing better than to question it. Some things were meant to stay between the living and the lost. Lou approached quietly, a mug of coffee in her hand. "You still think about him?" she asked. Amy nodded. "Every day. But it's different now. It doesn't hurt, it just reminds me." The sound of hooves broke their silence. A young boy rode into view, barely 15, struggling to keep his balance on a spirited chestnut mare. Amy's heart lifted as she recognized him. Eli, a new trainee who'd come to Heartland after losing his own family ranch. His eyes were bright, full of that same mix of fear and determination Nathan once had. When Eli dismounted, breathless and muddy, Amy laughed. "You remind me of someone," she said softly. He grinned, embarrassed, and brushed off his jacket. "Someone good, I hope." "Someone brave," she replied, her voice steady. "Someone who didn't give up when it mattered most." Later that day, as Amy guided Eli through his first lesson with Spartan, the air felt alive again the way it used to before secrets poisoned the ranch. The rhythm of hooves, the soft laughter, the whisper of the wind through the pines. It was as if Heartland itself was breathing in new life. When the lesson ended, Amy led Spartan back to the barn. On the wall near Nathan's old stall, the sun hit something faint, a single white feather tucked into the wood. She paused, touching it gently. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carried away by the breeze. Outside, the horses galloped across the field, their silhouettes glowing in the light of a new dawn. The world felt open again, endless, forgiving, full of promise. The camera pulls back slowly, capturing Heartland in its quiet perfection, alive, renewed, and unbroken.